Could you give me a background on yourself?
I like to call it my quarter life crisis. Fell into drug use, heavy addiction, partying every weekend just to blank out because life wasn't going the way I wanted it to.
How did that play on your self-esteem?
One of the things I haven't brought up is I also got diagnosed with ADHD probably about 12 months ago. I fell into bouts of depression because I work my ass off and wouldn't always get the opportunities. And it was like, hang on, I've been doing this for 10 years. What am I really doing with my life? I found this business world and serving and supporting people and helping them grow, which is what I love.
Low self-esteem, mental health issues, stress, misaligned values, overthinking, addiction. Have you ever felt like something was wrong but have not known how to address it? It takes being brutally honest with yourself to get clarity on how to become more aligned. Today I'm speaking to Jim Cox about his personal and professional transformation while addressing themes such as overcoming addiction, aligning with personal values, perseverance, and the impact of mentorship. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioural science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, Nick Brax, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, we discuss how you can turn your personal struggles into career growth and success. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Jim, so nice to meet you, mate.
You as well. Good to be on.
Appreciate you making the time. So I might just jump straight in.
Yep.
Could you give me a bit of a background on yourself and how you came to be doing what you're now doing?
Yeah, for sure, mate. Look, it's been a bit of a ride, I tell you what. Actually started my career in the arts. So music theatre boy. Worked for Disney, was an official Disney prince, travelled the world, got to do a lot of cool stuff. I think what really got to me with the arts world was just constant auditions and never really feeling like I was climbing and getting anywhere. Not to mention that at the time, you know, I'm 6'3", so roles in music theatre at 6'3" don't come up very often. So I decided to pivot and use the other side of the brain and actually got an MBA, moved up to Sydney in Australia and went to the Opera House. Learned to become a manager of a theatre was the plan, but what I didn't think about was the salary and the lack of jobs in Australia. It's not like the US where there's theatres everywhere. So I moved into management in retail and fitness. I guess that was sort of my moment of, I like to call it my quarter life crisis. Fell into drug use, heavy addiction, you know, partying every weekend just to blank out because life wasn't going the way I wanted it to. Really, really unresourceful habits, and was very lucky that I actually had a mate who was studying to be a coach. And he turned around and said, dude, like, with where you're at, you should go see someone. I'd seen psychologists and stuff and it just hadn't done it for me. But coaching totally lit me up. So I met a guy similar to yourself. He was from the UK. He disappeared off to a foreign land. Was living in Bali and loving his life, and, you know, working 3 days a week, 4 sessions a day, just coaching and supporting people to get to where they want to be. So I don't know if it was partly look, he was a fantastic coach as well, but the lifestyle that he was living was the catalyst for me to go, hey,
Yeah.
you know, you can escape the 9 to 5, and this freedom this freedom lifestyle isn't this myth that people just make up on social media to look good. Like, it can actually happen. So studied my ass off, signed up to a master's in coaching while I was 31, living in my parents' granny flat, driving Uber to pay the bills, and essentially built a business from that granny flat. So went from zero to 6 figures a month. I'm now really grateful that I've got an amazing team around me, consult to some of the best coaching schools in Australia, but also my biggest pathway is to essentially help people do what I did. So beat the burnout, find something that they're truly passionate about, and make work not feel like work. So we support, startup businesses to go from 0 to 30K months in less than 12 months, hopefully.
Yeah, wow. What a story. And I think that's such a great message, because it can be, there's one thing finding something you may be passionate about, like you're saying there with the theatre, the musical theatre, but then it's there's sometimes not enough. Like, you need to marry the two together and find that sweet spot. And
Yeah.
that alone, I've come from entertainment background as well, and I've auditioned and had experience in that industry, and it can be soul destroying. And as you start getting older,
I mean, the fact that for the Disney auditions, and luckily I don't work for them anymore, so I can say this and not get in trouble. The Disney auditions, it's literally down to what you look like. So you go in and your first audition round isn't even can you dance, can you act, can you sing. It's, hey, line up with a number on your body, and we'll just pick people out that we think fit the parts that we need you for. So it's purely based on looks. So, stuff like that can be a little bit intimidating. But I think the other thing for me that I discovered, and I wish I'd done it sooner, was that arts was my passion and a hobby, and it probably should have stayed a hobby. I think the industry really kind of jaded the experience for me and what I really loved about the arts.
makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And how did that play on your self-esteem, I guess? Like you're saying there with, sometimes it's just judging people based on, something that you don't have control over, and you're going for all these auditions, and the lack of security. Did that play a big part on chipping away at your self-esteem over time?
Look, one of the things I haven't brought up is I also got diagnosed with ADHD probably about 12 months ago. And I didn't realize at the time, but obviously auditions, as I'm sure you've been through it yourself, incredibly high anxiety. I fell into bouts of depression because I work my ass off, and wouldn't always get the opportunities. And it was like, hang on, I've been doing this for 10 years. What am I really doing with my life?
Yeah.
And it was interesting as soon as I found this business world and serving and supporting people and helping them grow, which is what I love, getting in front of people, it's all of that, all those symptoms have totally disappeared. So, I have stressful situations that, I just deal with because it's fun and I love it. And I actually thrive on stress, but it's stress in the right environments. And I think that's one of the really key things, when we're working with clients on high performance and mindset and all that sort of stuff. Growing a successful business is 80% what's going on in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think stress that you can probably control more. So when you're running your own business, you're doing the coaching, as opposed to the entertainment area, when you don't know even if in a 2-year period whether you're going to be working or not. You can, if you're stressed in any given day in business, you can put your head down and try and find new clients, try and work with other clients. You can find a million different things that are practical that you can do to move forward.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I think one of the things I've discovered with business is the less you do, the more successful you are. As weird as that sounds, and definitely not from a startup level. Like, don't get me wrong, but the more I've been in business for probably 5 years now, and the more I was able to let go of the baby, so to speak, the business being the baby. So the more I was able to delegate sales, delegate marketing, delegate coaching the newbies and stepping up to work with the higher level guys. if you find people that drive your passion but are just as passionate about your mission as you are, it just makes business so much easier. And it
Yeah.
takes a ton of work to get to that level. Don't get me wrong. Like I was working, 6-7 days a week, driving Uber, building the business, studying. I didn't stop for a good 8 months. But now, I'm able to sort of take a step back and work on the business and not necessarily need to be doing the grind all the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which, yeah, exactly. You can only get it to a certain level when it's all relying on you and your time. You need to be able to, at some point, step out and be able to sort of work on it in that way.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to anyone out there, especially men? Like our audience is, we've got about 70% of our audience is men.
Yep.
So men that are in that place that you were in, that I've been in before, where you're at a crossroads, you're stuck, you're feeling like you can't see a future, you don't know where to go. What would be your advice to anyone listening to this that is in that position?
Stop thinking about trying stuff and just try anything and everything that you can possibly think of. I think that's the biggest thing. And I see it so much in my space because we predominantly work with people that want to become coaches, consultants, trainers. We work with that sort of service-based field. And so many people get stuck on who that ideal client is and the niche and who they want to serve. So the analogy that I like to use is, treat it like a piece of clothing. You can stare at that clothing on the rack and all of the different options for hours. But until you try it on, buy it, take it out, see if it's a fit, you're never going to know if it's actually going to look good. And, if it doesn't work, drop it off at the op shop and go buy another one.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, finding your purpose, your passion, if you don't know what that is. Like, I was literally, mate, I was typing into Google, what jobs can I do to work from home? How can I, what jobs allow me to travel? Because that was one of the things I loved about performing, right, is the freedom and the flexibility and visiting new countries and new cultures. So I think the other thing that probably really helped me, now that I think of it, is figure out your values. Bringing up the freedom, the flexibility, adventure. It was funny because I did values work in my coaching course, and all this stuff was tattooed. Not that you can see it, but all this stuff was actually tattooed on my body, and I just got it because it felt cool. But my values, finding something that fit around my top 5 values made sure that I loved what I was doing every single day.
Yeah. I think that's such an important point, because you're not going to be able to sustain it or put the effort in long term if you don't have that value, if it's not aligned with who you are, because otherwise you're going to be dreading getting up.
Yeah. The vision that you have for your life needs to be bigger than any problem or challenge that you're going to face. And that was the thing for me, is I was stuck, at 31, moving back in with my parents, living in a granny flat out the back. And I swore to myself, because of what corporate life had done to me, that I would never go back to corporate again, no matter what. So coaching literally became my only option. And that drove me to succeed. Every failure was just a learning to go, hey, look, I've got to pivot. And I think that's so crucial.
I think both of those points are so important, what you've said there, where before, and I've had this same experience where I was so lost and I just tried everything. And by doing that, I found a path, but I would have never found that path if I sat there and just tried to think of it, to think it up and to find it. So doing that, and then the other part that you're saying of, once you have found what you're going to do, don't give yourself an out. Just keep pushing forward on that path, because and this is like what we face every day as entrepreneurs or anything where you're running something yourself, you're going to have days, weeks where you just don't want to do it, or you can't. It's such a struggle, and you have to be able to just push forward. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at Nick Brax. I really appreciate your ongoing support.
Yeah, and I think that lends to the third part in the journey, which is something that I really needed to deal with, was my ego. So believing that you could do it all on your own and you could just figure it out by yourself, and you knew everything you needed to know to get to where you want to be. I really had to work on that and drop the ego, because my business trajectory soared as soon as I decided to find a coach myself, decided to find a mentor myself, someone that had come before me that could fast track me to where I wanted to be. And I think it was Richard Branson that I read that said it, that successful people don't do it alone.
Yeah.
And I see it time and time again. The people that work with us, but they don't show up or they don't do the work, they just expect a magic pill. Hey, I'm going to pay you guys to support me and you're just going to make my business work, and I don't want to put any effort in or take any action. They don't succeed, obviously. Whereas, the people that ask for help when they've got questions, that are curious and willing to explore possibility outside what they believe to be true, they're the people that expand and succeed so much faster, because they're willing to learn, and you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a big piece as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's no magic pill. A lot of people are out there looking for, that get rich quick scheme or something, some solution, some silver bullet, but it doesn't exist.
Oh,
If
I
it's too
think,
good to be true, it's not going to
yeah,
exist.
look, I think one of the downsides about social media is we spend so much time comparing ourselves,
Yeah.
and not just that, but for marketers out there to look good on social media, they're always spruiking their message or showing that they're an overnight success, or they got this quicker, faster, easier, and it really sets people up to fail, because it's this constant shiny new thing syndrome, and looking like, oh cool, if I do this or I buy this, I'll get success quicker and I don't even have to put in as much work. So the messages out there are setting people up for failure, in my opinion.
Oh, massively, massively.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem, because it just means people are constantly looking for the next thing. It's like dating. People are, saying that there's endless perceived options. I can jump on my phone, and even if the date goes well, great, but maybe there's someone a little bit better. So
Correct.
let's not
There might be
invest in
something
this
else out
person.
there that's correct. Totally.
So it's just never ending, and it's a recipe for depression. It's a recipe for staying stagnant, and not just making a commitment to anything. So it's
Totally. And I think that it's also partly the thing that stops people from finding what they are truly passionate about, because they never take the opportunity to actually give something a hard go. It's like, buy a program a week in, oh crap, one hurdle, one obstacle gets in my way. This isn't going to work. What else can I do? And they don't take the opportunity to try and combat that obstacle, to challenge themselves to expand outside that comfort zone and push themselves through that obstacle. They just give up and they move on to the next thing. So
exactly. What would you how would you well, what advice would you give to people that are suffering from burnout? You talked a little bit about that before, and that's such a big problem in this day and age, because it's very hard to switch off. What would be advice you'd have about
that? Look, I think there's so many different things. I mean, I've written a book about it, but I think that
read your book.
Read the book. No. Look, I think Build, Excite, Ignite, the book that I've written, is a combination of my story and how to find what you love, and how to build your own business. And the feedback that we've gotten from it has actually been fantastic. It's been bigger than anything that I actually ever thought I would write. But I think the crux of it is probably two key things. One, work on yourself, which makes sense with me being on this podcast, right? It's all about what's up here, and being willing to be truthful with yourself and open with yourself and deal with your shit. I still remember the day that I was standing I did an NLP training, so neuro-linguistic programming training, and dropped the ego, scared shitless, but essentially confessed to the entire room of 40 people that I had a meth problem. And that was how I was blacking out. That was how I was blanking out from what was not going well with my life, right? And as soon as I did that, humongous weight off my shoulders.
Mm.
It allowed me to move on from it and get over it quite easily, funnily enough, because I was all of a sudden I was held accountable to people and I couldn't hide it. Um, but the most inspiring thing for me with that was the amount of people that came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you, me too."
Yeah.
That was the spark. Was like, crap, we're all going through the same things, and I think that this is another part of it as well, is that people don't realize um, how similar we all are and how we are all just going through the same shit. I think people think that we're that we're different and we're individual and nobody else has my problems. But as soon as you're able to open up and start talking to people, it opens up doors. I think that's, not just within yourself, but serving and supporting others. That's where the transformation is.
Massively. I think, I got into the mental health space about 13 years ago, and the first thing I did was very clumsily go to schools and share my story, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But all these years later, I've done, many different things in this area, but the sharing stories and hearing other people's stories, I still think is the most powerful thing. And I have it happen all the time where I'm interviewing someone like yourself and I'll hear something and I'll think, oh, wow, I've been going through a similar thing, and that's really
Correct.
helped me in that moment. And it's amazing how powerful it is. And I think especially for men, we have that ego where we think maybe it's not being a man if we're going to show that vulnerability, or if we're suffering, or if we can't find a way to cope with a situation. And we need to talk about it. Like the example you said there, it's such a weight off the shoulders. It helps other people.
Mm,
And I mean, the suicide rates for men are through the roof, and it's something that
yeah,
we need. It's shocking, and it needs to be talked about because not enough men are sharing what they're going through. They're not getting help.
totally. Yeah, totally. And I think that that's the thing as well is, I was close to suicide myself when I was in corporate. Like I'd hit the snooze button 6 times to drag myself out of bed. I was drinking, copious amounts of alcohol and everything else to blank out and pass out at night. Um,
Mm.
Literally in the car park at my office, screaming at the top of my lungs in my car. I would have freaked out anybody that walked past. But screaming just to get the energy to open the door and walk into work because of the environment, the toxic environment that I was in.
Mm. Mm.
And more importantly, because I wasn't willing to talk to anybody about how I was feeling. It was like everybody else's life is perfect. This is me. This is my shit. I can't, I'm the only one that can deal with this. And it was just the wrong mentality to have. Opening up to people makes you realize that we've all got stuff. And I see it time and time again with coaches, right? Like the perception of people that become coaches in the mindset space is that they have to have their life figured out to coach other people. And it's actually the complete opposite. Like showing
Mm.
vulnerability, showing that, hey, look, we're all just navigating through this thing we call life. And if everything was perfect, life would be pretty effing boring, to be honest. It's doing it together that makes it fun.
Massively, massively.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about things like what when you were going through that experience in corporate. Nothing against corporate. Some people might be suited to it and love it. I'm the same as you, where I got diagnosed with ADHD a year ago, and I've had mental health issues and anxiety my whole life, and it was
Mm.
so liberating to learn that. But when I was younger, I tried the same thing, and I was going through a period where I was stuck, and I think I lasted about 3 days where I was working in an office, and I thought I'd rather be on the street than doing this, just because it wasn't suited. And again, nothing, not saying I don't like working hard or that
No, no,
there's
no.
anything bad about it, but it just was not suited to me. I couldn't cope with that kind of work.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting better in society, but again, we're not accommodating for all of the different personality types and trying to educate people about how they can fit into this crazy world that we're in.
I work harder and get more done in half a day than I would working 8 to 6 in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's the thing. And I think it's also why I'm really grateful that COVID happened.
Yeah.
Despite all of the craziness and everything else that went on, it's made corporate business wake up and go, hey, look, we can actually allow people to work from home. In fact, people are more productive when they
Yeah.
work from home, or certain people anyway. And I'm really excited to see what happens over the next 12 months, because I think the transition to where we're kind of going back the other way a little bit, where people are actually going, hey, look, I want to be back in the office and I want to be back around people. But then you do have this group of people that are happy to work from home. So it's going to become this sort of hybrid working environment. And the advances with AI and tech and what that's allowing people to do to speed up their work processes, the next couple of years in business are going to be really, really exciting. So,
Yeah, massively, mate, massively.
Mm.
So can you tell me a little bit more about your book?
Yes, Build, Excite, Ignite. I don't know if everyone's watching the video, but for those that can see it, essentially it's how to beat burnout and build a six-figure business in 12 months. So talking people through not just my journey in a bit more detail to inspire and support, but also takes you through some really tactical worksheets and processes and steps to support you to understand what you love, what skills you have, what you could potentially build. A little bit of stuff on there too around what we've been talking about, mate, around opening up to people in terms of a marketing and branding perspective. So, the importance of your story, the importance of getting yourself out there to connect with people, whether it's social media, community, whatever it is. It's kind of become a little bit of a coach within a book, I guess, if that makes sense.
Love that. Love that.
Mm.
And where can people go if they want to check it out?
Yep. So Build, Excite, Ignite, easiest place is probably Amazon. So paperback and ebook are available. Otherwise, you can jump onto clearedgecoaching.com, which is my website, and check it out there.
Great. And we'll have the links in the show notes for anyone wanting to check that out.
Beautiful.
So we finish every episode with 5 closing questions. Before I go into that, I just want to finish up asking you, do you have any daily or, regular things that you do personally to manage your, your mental and physical health?
3 personal, 3 professional goals a day. And if I get I get those 3 things done in my business, then I knock off early and that's my job done. So
nice and simple.
Yeah, I think it's allowed me to deal with the big stuff, and the little tasks kind of get, the little tasks get done as well. But I aim to knock off by, 2:00 every day if I can. And then it's, gardening. I think the biggest thing for me on the mindset side is getting out in the sun, gardening, just getting back to nature and being grounded. That's been a huge thing for me to recharge.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, first of these questions, what is your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Dancing around a Celine Dion in a skirt that my grandmother made me. White with red polka dots and a hairbrush.
Love it. Love it. There's an image.
Yeah, correct.
What would you say is currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
The fact that the individual is not willing to talk about it soon enough.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of services out there, but I think there's still, especially in Australia, I think there's still that tall poppy syndrome where people feel like they get knocked down and they don't talk about it. I think that's probably one of the biggest.
Massively. What would you say that it means to be a man?
Oh, good one. To be vulnerable, I think, is probably the biggest one. I think there's a toxic masculinity that has been built up over the decades, and I think that being willing to be vulnerable as a man is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Well, you can't really be your authentic self if you're not willing to show that vulnerability. You can't get the help if you're not willing to show it. So yeah, an important one.
Yeah.
What's your personal definition of happiness?
Staying true to your values. I think I brought that up, but I think that's the biggest one for me is not chasing happiness in what other people are doing because they look happy. but figuring out what makes you happy. And the biggest one that I learned as well is stop chasing the buck of money, to be honest.
Which both are very hard things to do, mate. Like to stay true to your values. It might sound easy, but we get thrown so many things, day-to-day distractions and the money thing. It's like it's a tough thing to do. You got to be very sure, very strong in yourself to be able to say no to a lot of things.
Yeah, and look, for those listening that struggle to it, I think the one thing that I have learned is that money is a resource, and as woo-woo as this sounds, it will come when it's needed, if you truly, truly believe that. And on top of that, when you're doing what you love, money just comes naturally. So as long as you can live those values and find something you love doing every single day, the money that you need will be there.
Exactly. And you might not become a billionaire, but if you're doing what you love, you can't go wrong. You're doing what you love.
That's the thing for me, right? Like I've started quite a successful business, and I'm not out here to make millions. You know what I mean? Like for me, I'd be happy, gunning to 6-7 million so I can support my team and pay them right and help them have the lifestyle that I've got. But it's about being comfortable. It's not about having cash in the bank and Lamborghinis and pretending I've got a jet and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
exactly. Well, I think being able to finish the workday at 2 PM and go and do some gardening in the sun's not a bad lifestyle.
Love my life now. I'm very, very proud that I can say that.
Yeah, love it. So final one, what are you most proud of?
A lot of things, but I think the biggest one is the fact that I got out of the hole that I was in. That I realized the power in being vulnerable. Like, just like you were talking about before, mate, vulnerability sometimes in a male environment is seen as a weakness. But I really, truly believe that it's a strength. And yeah, just being able to step up and go from, recovery from drugs, being on the couch watching every single possible sci-fi movie that I could on Netflix to the point where I didn't actually know what else I could watch, which is hard to do on Netflix. Just to stepping up and creating a $1 million business. Like, I think it's that's probably the most powerful accolade, and doing it not because of the success in business, but because of the people I've been able to impact. I want to be really clear on that. Being able to work with an amazing team and impact people's lives and have people thank me for getting them out of a job that they never thought they'd leave, that's what lights me up. It's got nothing to do with the money and the success.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point. And thank you for sharing the story. It's definitely something to be proud of, and I'm sure it's helping so many people. I know it will help our listeners listening to it. So one final thing I want to ask you, what would you say to your younger self if you could go back right now and talk to your 18-year-old self or your 20-year-old self or yourself at the most vulnerable point? What would you say to him?
Stop listening to everybody else and find what you really love, and screw everybody else's opinions and work on that.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, mate. It's been so great chatting to you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, it's been good.
Thank you, Jim Cox, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.